welcome everybody. So, as already said, my name is Martin Sugart. I'm the managing director and founder of Datentreiber, which is a data strategy consulting company. So we help our clients to create value from the data and also to really find out what are their data assets. And that is also what I will be talking about. So, because we developed over the last 5 years our own method and a toolkit called Data Strategy Design and Data Strategy Designkit for designing data strategies. And data strategy also means analytics and AI strategy. And we open sourced the whole Data Strategy Design Kit. So everything you see here is available for free. You can use it for your own projects or for your own client projects, whatever. So besides being the founder and managing director of Datentreiber and doing the data strategy consulting, I'm also the program director of the Predictive Analytics World and Deep Learning World conferences in Europe. And as the name already suggests, those conferences are about applied predictive analytics and deep learning. And there are different verticals or different conferences for different verticals. There is, for example, one conference which is called Predictive Analytics World for Industry 4.0, which is about applying machine learning, deep learning for manufacturing, logistics, and so on. And yeah, the last conference was about 4 weeks ago as part of the Machine Learning Week. Unfortunately, because of this Corona thing, also virtual. But we are looking forward to have our conference in spring in Munich and come together. Then the community comes together again. And there will be a lot of case studies and deep dives about predictive analytics. And this will be also the topic of today. So together with you guys, I want to design a data strategy for our manufacturing company and identify use cases for predictive analytics. And what you also already can see here is this Miro board, and I will share the link to the Miro board with you. So it would be great if you join me on Miro. For those people who don't know, it's not called Miro, it's called Miro. Sorry for that. If you don't know Miro, that's like a whiteboard, a virtual whiteboard where you can collaborate in real time. So I will share it on the chat window. You don't have to register anything. You can just click on the link and you can start. Yeah, a lot of people are already coming here. So, and you can all really work with me and the other people on this Miro board. Before we start, before you start filling the canvas and the Miro board, I will also introduce you to the method and the design kit, and especially to this Miro board. So please be patient about 5 minutes before we get into the working mode. So let's dive into what is why do you need a data and analytics strategy? So most companies just start with implementing one use case, and often this use case fails because for different reasons. Often the data is not right, so there are issues with data quality, or sometimes the use case does not have a positive return on investment, so it costs much more than it brings value. Sometimes there is no user acceptance. And often this is because people start doing data science before they think about data and data products. And designing a data strategy is all about identifying the relevant use cases that help you and your company to reach your company objectives. So the first thing you have to do is think about your business strategy and then align your data and analytics strategy to your business strategy. And if you take a look on this Miro board, what you can see in the center of the board, there is this question called why. And this is the first thing you should ask yourselves. And if you're doing the workshop, you will do it with business people, with data scientists, with people from IT and so on. And so you should really work on this question. So what is our business objectives here? For example, it could be like, okay, we want to increase cost efficiency, or we want to increase the flexibility, availability of our products, or whatever. So those are your company milestones you want to achieve. And of course, so this should answer the question, why do we need data analytics for? And this should be, and the important thing about a data strategy is it should be value oriented. It should really answer the question how you create value from your data, how to create business value from data. But it should also be human centric, because every data and analytics solution has a user who uses the solution, and if you don't accept it, if you don't use it won't create any business value. And the third thing is, of course, it should be data driven, because otherwise it's not going to be an analytics solution. It's just a simple IT solution, but we will think about how we can create value from data. So it must be a data driven solution. And the next thing is, I think that is very obvious. When you design and execute your data strategy, you should be HR minded. So what I often see is that people start designing a data strategy and creating a PowerPoint slide deck with 100 slides, and then they have this plan for, let's say, 5 years, and then they start to build up their data lake, their data architecture, and so on. And after 3 years, they start developing data products that create value. And then they learn, oh, the data is not right. Yeah? And that's not agile. So agile is identifying your next best use case and then trying to implement this use case as fast as possible, because first thing is you create immediately value for your company. And so you prove to your managing director or whoever that you are able to create value from the data. And the second thing is you are testing the critical assumptions in your data strategy, because every strategy is just a collection of assumptions, and your job is to test those critical assumptions. So that's why you should be agile and follow an iterative approach to that. So once we identified what is our objective here, we can answer the next question, and this is, how does data and analytics help us? So, and this is all about identifying the relevant use cases. And often, and I had this talk to one of my clients today, and we went through a data thinking workshop we did in the past, which was over multiple days. And so we went through it, and I counted the use cases, and we identified over 100 use cases for just the marketing of this company. And what we apply is a screening process, because I mean, we all have good ideas, and each day we have another idea how data and analytics can help us. But in the end, a lot of use cases are not viable. So they don't create a positive return on investment, or they are not desirable, though the users won't use the solution, or they are not feasible, meaning that it's too complicated to implement, or there are data issues, data quality issues, and so on. So the thing here is, when you start with 100 ideas, in the end, there will be just a few use cases that are viable, desired, and feasible. And you should focus on those use cases that are what we call your next best use cases. Those are the next best projects you should focus on and try to implement very fast. And it's much easier to start with 100 ideas and then to filter out the 3 or 5 relevant ideas, instead of thinking before, okay, what are the 3 or 5 ideas that are really, in the end, viable, desired, and feasible. So it's a classic design thinking approach, meaning fail fast to succeed earlier. So it's better to fail early in the process than later in the process, because later you have invested a lot of money and effort into the wrong project, into the wrong use case. And in order to identify the relevant use cases, we will go through a specific process, and this process has different phases. So it all starts with the intro, and along this process, we will identify what data do we need, what analytics do we need, what partners, what people do we need, how do we have to change processes. And then after the intro, we will go into the so-called business understanding. So we will analyze the existing business model, or possible the future business model. We will analyze business processes, and then we will think about use cases. And when we know the use cases, we can also think about who will be the user. And then we can think about, okay, what are the pains and gains of these users? What is the objectives and the key results this user has to achieve? What are the jobs or the actions and decisions he can make or take? And so this is really important to get a deep user understanding before you design the analytic solution. And once you got your user understanding, then we go into the data understanding and think about, okay, how do we design the analytics solution? For example, the machine learning model, what data do we need, and where in our data landscape do we find the data? And the last thing is the outro. We will think about, is it really a business case? So should we really put a lot of effort and money into it? And what are our critical assumptions we should test first before we set up this project, before we go to our managing director and ask for, let's say, 100,000 euro to implement the solution. Before that, we should really think about what are the open questions and critical assumptions. So this is a rough overview over the whole process, over what we call data strategy design. And for following this process and approach, we developed different tools, and those tools are mostly canvas tools. So they are like posters, like, for example, you can see here one example, the data landscape canvas. And this guides you through the process, because you have to fill out this canvas, and by filling out this canvas, so you will ask the right question, you will ask the critical questions. And we, as said, we applied this method for about 5 years. We did, I think, over 100 workshops and trainings, and trained a few hundred people that use this method for their clients and for the companies. Okay, so that's the rough overview over the whole process. Now we go into more detail, and of course, normally I would do this workshop in about 2 days or 4 half days, but we don't have so much time, so it will be a rough and a very fast going through this process. And the first thing, so we introduced ourselves. I introduced the objective, so I make this green, explain the methods and the tools. And so now we go into the first step by analyzing the business model. And therefore we use a specific version of the business model canvas, which you can see here. And now the question is, for whom we will design this. And let's do this for the, let's call it the Set Hippo manufacturing company. And it is designed by the Meetup group. There's also in the header a field for the date, which is important because to document the current state. And there's also the version, and the version must not be 1.0 or something like that. But for example, if the manufacturing company has different divisions or different business models, we can do it for just one business model or one division. For example, let's think about the Set Hippo manufacturing company. They are producing a lot of different things. And one thing they are producing are pipes. So oil pipes or gas pipes or whatever. We do this now for the pipes business model, or for the pipes B2B business. So they are selling this pipes to other companies. Yeah. So, and the next thing is that we will use different colors to fill out this business model canvas, and we will use green nodes to indicate that this part of the business model is existing. We will use red nodes to indicate this is a missing part or something that might be implemented in the future. and yellow nodes for things that are already work in progress or already on the agenda that are planned. And if you're doing a workshop, the best thing is there should be a moderator like me, and you go box by box. So we will start, for example, with the solutions, and that's something I want to do with you. So please help me to fill out the solutions. What do you think is the Set Hippo manufacturing company selling? So of course they are selling pipes, but maybe there are different form of types of pipes, and maybe they're also selling services. So let's do this for one moment. Let's see. I will set a timer. Let's do this for 1 minute. You're all ready. If you have any questions, please use the chat window. Great, Justin is helping me. Justin has a competitive advantage. He visited one of our trainings, I think 2 weeks ago, so he knows a lot of things already. Yeah, pipe maintenance tools, great maintenance services. Yeah, the development of new pipes. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And this is a really important thing because I had a lot of workshops with businesses and their data science teams, and sometimes the data scientists during a break come to me and say, "Hey, Martin, that's a great exercise here. That's the first time. So I'm working for 6 months for this company, and that's the first time I really understand what this company is doing." And I'm not kidding. This really happened a lot of times because sometimes companies have a problem to really make it easy for other people, even their own employees, to make clear what is their business model. Okay, time is over. Let's then think about what are the benefits from the solutions. Let's start another timer, 1 minute. So what do you think, how the clients benefit from buying and using those solutions? So for example, it could be that those pipes have a high quality or have a high how it's called, life expectancy. So, or for example, the profit from the pipe expertise. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, there is obviously there's one pipe expert. Okay, so let's then start with the next. Who could be the user, buyers, and decision makers? Who are the clients, for example? And if you want, I mean, we could also to accelerate this to broaden it to the whole canvas. So don't think about this specific box because it's just an exercise here, just an example. Let's file out the whole canvas so I can show you what then the next step will be. So and let's do this, let's say for about 3 minutes. So could be, for example, and you can see here, for example, on the right side here, this is what are the clients. Then here channels means what are the marketing and the distribution channels, the sales channels. Could be, for example, the sales manager, or could be the maybe they have also an e-shop, things like that. Maybe they are going to conferences and exhibitions. Yeah, it's a B2B relationship, for example, and maybe it's a long-term relationship. Yeah, for example, clients could be construction companies, but could be also manufacturing companies that needs pipes for their manufacturing processes, things like that. So resources, the raw material. It's although of course maybe patents are resources, but also maybe the pipe experts. Then the manufacturing sites, for example, other resources. Activities are, of course, the manufacturing, probably, but also the sales and service. Maybe they also do a lot of research and development. I mean, for this example, it's very generic. If you're doing a real workshop, it might be very specific and much more complicated than what we do now, because often you take a much longer time for filling out this and you have much more discussions between the experts. Maybe there are partners like raw material providers, or for example, maybe they have the patent agency and whatever. So I will skip the costs, risks, and revenues, advantages. So this is really then about the financial part of the business, so how they make money and so on. But this is the first thing we do during data thinking or data strategy design workshop is analyze the existing or the potential future business model. And then the next thing is we should identify use cases. And sometimes it's necessary to break down the business model into specific business processes or specific business areas like marketing or production, and then to break it down into specific business processes. But to make it easy here, we just take a look on the business model and then think about what could be potential analytics use cases. And you can think of an analytics use case by first thinking about a problem. So what could be a problem or question that is critical for this business model or this business process. But often it's also that people come up with solutions, so they can't formulate the problem, but they already thought about a solution. And other people they come up with ideas and saying, okay, we need this because we need this benefit. And all three things are completely valid. So if you do a brainstorming and for AI use case or for analytics use case ideation, let people formulate problems, solutions, or benefits. So that is it's all equal. And that's the next thing I want to do with you here is really think about what could be interesting analytics use cases, especially, of course, of predictive or prescriptive analytics. So let's take another, let's say 2 minutes to ideate a few use cases here. And for the use cases, please use the blue color. For example, could be for the manufacturing sites, it could be something like predictive maintenance. Or it could be a sales forecast. Things like that. Or, for example, an inventory forecast. Or let's call it demand forecast. I think it's better here. Or for example, things like for the maintenance thing, it could be visual inspection, machine vision-based visual inspection. Oh, just hit the back button, the undo button, please. No. Okay, one more moment. I'll put it back on the canvas. No, sorry. No, that's okay. So, do you have other ideas? Failure prediction, yeah. Great. So probably if you do this exercise in real life, so in a real workshop setting, I mean, in most cases, you will come up with 20, 30, 40 different use case ideas. And often, as said, people, I mean, now we formulated a lot of solutions. Sometimes people come up with just like the problem, like saying, okay, for example, we have the problem or the question whether we should visit a conference. Yeah. So is there a marketing return on investment by visiting this conference? Then it's also completely fine if people just know what the problem is without knowing the solution. Yeah. Or the people say, okay, we need, for example, we have this issue of churn. Now we have a problem with the churn rate. That could be also one thing here. Okay, resource utilization projection, also an interesting case here. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing is when we say, okay, we've done this, then the next thing is we should assess the analytics maturity of the business, especially of the specific department or of the area of application. And then the second step is we ideate specific analytics solutions for the specific use case. And therefore, we use another canvas. It's called the analytics maturity canvas, and I want to explain this canvas a little bit to you. And this analytics maturity canvas is designed to build an analytics roadmap. And as you probably know, you can have different forms of analytics, different types of complexity. So most companies, they are good in implementing a business reporting based on descriptive analytics. So they just know what happened, but they don't know why it happened. And often what they do is once they manage the level of business reporting, they is trying to go into the next level. That's business discovery. And there you use diagnostic analytics in order to find out why things happened. So you apply correlation analysis, trend analysis, driver analysis, and so on to identify the drivers, the trends, and things like that. And once you know that why things happened, you can use those insights to do business forecasting. And business forecasting, if we talk about in analytics, so data-driven and analytical business forecasting, meaning that you apply predictive analytics. And that is all about what could happen in the future. Now, and then the next level will be the business optimization, so the data-driven and analytical business optimization, which is based on prescriptive analytics. So this answers the question, what should happen? What is the best thing I could do? So simulating different scenarios and then thinking about, okay, what is the best thing we could do? And finally, you come to the data-driven and analytical business automation. So you have automated analytics. So in comparison to the business optimization, there's also still people involved that do, for example, checks, and they just take the recommendation from the prescriptive analytics solution and then perform the action or initiate the action. If it's a real data-driven business automation, there is no human in the loop. Yeah? So it's completely automated. And so probably you know this analytics maturity framework that was published a few years ago by Gartner, and we used this maturity framework for this canvas. And the thing we do here is we first assess the analytics maturity. And for example, let's do this quickly for a part of the business. Copy this. So that's, by the way, the good thing for Miro. You can just copy and paste. You can also use the canvas in a printed version, so you can download it, print it. But there are also in an online shop you can buy pre-printed versions of those posters and use it with sticky notes. So we will do this here now, not for the whole pipes business, but let's do this for the maintenance. Yeah. As one example. So it's good practice to do this analytics maturity, not for the whole company, because part of the company might be much more mature than other parts of the company. And so you often do this on the level of different departments or application areas. And so we will do this now for the maintenance department, or the application area of maintenance. And probably what you have as a business application here is things like a maintenance plan. So you have an application where you plan the maintenance cycles, or maybe you have a application where you document all the failures and things like that. And often there is already a business reporting, like a maintenance report, or there's maybe a report which calculates the overall equipment efficiency of the whole manufacturing site and for different machines. And often what is used as descriptive analytics is a data warehouse solution and ETL tools and things like that. And maybe you also have a dashboarding tool. And this is also what you can see here is the difference between the upper green part and the lower yellow part. So in the green area, we are talking about the use cases or the applications, and the yellow part is about the tools we need to implement those applications. Because the business users, so the maintenance manager, he won't or she won't use ETL tool or data warehouse or dashboarding tool. They will expect our working solutions or specific solutions that generates a maintenance report or an overall equipment efficiency report. And it's the job of the data engineer, the data scientist, to use those tools to build this automated report. And by the way, this also really means here not a report which is done by hand and people copy and paste numbers. This really means it's generated by a solution called the maintenance report solution or whatsoever. And maybe they're already into the next level of business discovery. For example, one next step could be, for example, a system or a solution to help them to do root cause analysis. And there you can see, for example, dependencies. Because before you start implementing this root cause analysis solution, maybe it's better to have this maintenance report. And this is what I meant with an analytics roadmap. So you think about what is the best order for different solutions and how are they dependent on each other. So for example, for the forecasting, we could do one thing. We could implement a failure detection in the first step, doing the red one because it's not existing. And once we implemented this one, we could do a failure prediction. And maybe the next solution would be to implement a maintenance recommendation system. And this uses, for example, the failure prediction and the failure detection. And also there could be also a dependency. So You first start with the root cause analysis, then you implement the failure detection, then the failure prediction, and then you use both for maintenance recommendation. And then you can finally think about how could be the whole process automated, whatever. But let's stop here. You see how we use this analytics maturity canvas in our projects. What I want to show you now is a quick run through the rest of the process. It was just, as I said, a quick overview. So when you go into the user understanding, it's really important to pick one use case. So what we call your next best use case. You can use another method and another canvas. It's called the pick method, and we are using the priority metrics canvas for it. So you evaluate all your use cases according to the complexity and the benefits, because complexity is correlated with cost, effort, risks, and also cost of delay. And then you should focus on those use cases that have a low complexity and high benefit, and you should kill. Oh, by the way, there's something wrong. It's sorry. So yeah, you should implement those that have a high benefit and low complexity, and you should, for example, kill those use cases that have a high complexity and a low benefit. And this method is called pick because of the first letters of the words possible, implement, challenge, and kill. So this is another method to pick your next best use case. And when you pick your next best use case, then you can go into much more detail. You can use, for example, this analytics use case canvas to think about who will be the user of this use case, what are the decisions and actions, objective results, pains and gains. That's the right side. And then on the left side, you design the solution from the user perspective. So it's not about designing the internal technical and analytical details, but what information that the user wants to see, expects coming out from the solution, and what are the benefits. And finally, you do so-called problem solution fit. So this is really a way to ensure that you only implement those solutions that have a high problem solution fit, that really solves a critical problem of your users, because otherwise they won't use it. Yeah, and then you can go into the data understanding, whether to check whether your use cases are also feasible. And there we use a canvas that's called Data Strategy Canvas. So it's about designing your data pipelines, your analytic pipelines, thinking about what predictive models do we need, and so on. And also thinking about what are the tools I need, for example, to implement this data and analytics pipeline. What people do I need for it? Because every tool needs an expert. Maybe I outsource parts of the job and parts of the pipeline to partners. And also one canvas I want to show you is called the data landscape canvas. If you want to think about where we find the data, is it owned data? Is it earned data? Do we have to think about privacy issues here? Can we pay for data? Is there open data, public data, for example, satellite data? And and we use this data landscape canvas to identify our data assets. So really think about what are the data sources. We know that there are use cases to get out value from this data source. So then it's a data asset. And what are our data gaps? So often what I see in data strategy projects is we identify data gaps. So we have a lot of use cases we can't implement, though use cases are not feasible because the data is missing. And what happens then is people just throw away those use cases. And after 4 years, another team, a new team, has the same thoughts and come up with the same use case ideas and still identify the same data gaps, and no one cared about it. And that's something what should not happen. So if you identify here your data gaps, there should be someone, let's call him the data strategist or whoever, who is responsible for thinking about how to fill those data gaps by, for example, changing the data collection, changing the business process, or maybe changing also the business model, so you get the data you need in order to implement the use case. Yeah, and then finally we go into the business case calculation. So we use the known business model canvas again, but not here for analyzing the whole business model, but just for analyzing the specific business case. And as already said, also I tried to identify all the critical assumptions, and then, for example, prioritize those assumptions according to the failure likelihood and the failure impact. So you should focus on those critical assumptions that have a high chance, a high probability that they are falsified. And if they are falsified, that they kill your project. Now, as said, fail fast to succeed sooner. So probably you will, I mean, we had the situation a lot of times, for example, with one client, and we identified there is a critical assumptions that we have data from a lot of different clients. And I said, okay, let's check that, because if we don't have data from different clients, we can't build a reliable model. And the day after the workshop, they just wrote a SQL query, and they came back and said, yeah, okay, we have only 3 active clients using this software, so we have only actual data from three clients, and though this really killed the use case, and we take the second best next use case and focus on this use case, and this really was a success. And so we, as said, we failed fast and we succeeded earlier. So I think this is it. I mean, this is as said. So normally we do this workshop in for 2 days. Also, the training is about 2 days. If you want to know more about the method, about the design kits, also about the trainings, also the consulting and coaching we are offering, just visit our website, datentreiber.de or .com. Doesn't matter, and you will find a lot of information online. We also have a YouTube channel and SlideShare, and also follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter. There's a lot of free information available that gets you a lot of information about the method and the tools, and also about data strategy in general. And finally, we also have a so-called Data Thinker group on LinkedIn. I can copy and paste the URL in a few minutes. So now I'm open for your questions, and yeah, just unmute yourself or use the chat, whatever you want. So this is the link to the Data Thinker group. So you can also use the LinkedIn group to ask your questions, of course, later on if you have questions.
Maybe before anybody else asking, I can start too. Oh, there is a question. Can you see?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so, how many people maximum should participate, and who exactly, which teams, etc. I mean, before you do a data thinking workshop, you should really think about the objective and also focus. So what we did here now is very uncommon, because often you don't start with the whole business model. But for example, you focus on the manufacturing side. And then, of course, there should be people that are experts on the manufacturing process, of course. And I mean, you can look at different dimensions. So the first dimension is there should be people from the business, or the for example, manufacturing side, or the marketing, or whatever is this workshop all about. There should be people with data science expertise, or analytics, statistics, or whatever you call it. and also people from the IT, because they often know where is data located, in which format is it, and which quality is it, in which amount, and things like that. So, I mean, business, data, and IT are the three groups that should participate in this workshop. And then also there should be those people involved that are the decision makers, so that they will, those people that will decide whether this will be a project and there will be budget for it. Because if they are not involved, they will have hard times to judge whether this project or this use case makes sense. If they are involved, they also have the possibility to bring in their own expertise, their own opinions. So decision maker is very important. The second thing is there should be also the users involved. So we had one workshop with the head of sales, the head of marketing, the head of IT, the head of whatever. And I said before, hey guys, we want to build a sales analytics solution, or we want to build a data strategy for sales. So, and the strategy identifies different data products for sales managers. So there should be also the user participating in the workshop, and there should be a sales manager. And they told me, oh no, Martin, don't do that. I mean, they will interrupt the whole workshop. We know better. And I said, yeah, I really think, guys, you should invite some sales manager. I said, no, we don't do that. And I said, okay, I won't argue with you. And the workshop went for about 2 hours or so. And after 2 hours, the head of sales said, okay, let's stop here. I invite the regional sales manager because I think he can help us. Because they were too high level to really know what are the exact processes, what are the specific actions and decisions that have to be taken or made. And so first thing, decision makers, second thing, users, and also third thing, also the people that will implement the solution, because they need a good understanding why they are doing it and how they should do it in the end. And often, if you think about it, it will be between, let's say 6 and 9 people. 10 is critical because often it's too much people, and then you have too much opinions and too much people talking, too much discussion. If you have 5 or less people, often you miss, for example, the data science or the IT or the decision maker or things like that. You're welcome. Mehmet is saying, tip to inspire creativity for use cases, mapping analytics maturity with main business functions. Yeah, and map off their sub functions. Yeah. That's a good thing. And often, especially in a workshop series where we start with the managing directors, and then we break it down into the head of different department, and when we go in the next workshop and we break it down into application areas, and we use the analytics maturity also to see what are the existing analytics applications and what is missing. So do you have any further questions?
I would like to ask maybe one question from my side. You were saying that sometimes usually it's better to see the failure of the project from before. The earlier the better, because usually when the projects fail, it's too late. And I've read somewhere that usually the companies keep on investing money and trying to make something out of the failed project, and usually that's a bad step because they keep on losing. And is there some disaster recovery plan or something if the project fail in a later step?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting question, because I think that's something what is missing, because often I had a situation, I was working for a media client, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and I was consulting them on our machine learning project, and we had to stop this project because it was not, yeah, it was for, let's say, technical reasons. It's too detailed here, but for technical reasons we could not get specific data, and we said, okay, it does not make sense to implement this project, and we have to stop it here. And 5 years or 4 years later, another department asked me to help them because they were now the AI lab of this company, and they want to identify use cases. And they came up with the same idea. And I said, stop, guys. That sounds like a good idea, but I think we have to check first whether they solve this technical issue here. And we tried to find out, but no one knew, because all the people that were part of this project 4 years ago, they already left the company, and so nobody knew what was the exact problem and what happened. So what you really need is what we call a use case management, and we also advise our clients not to build only a use case library where you collect all the use cases, where you prioritize all the use cases, and also where you document the status and the project status of your use cases. But also what we call is a data or HELT. It's called Hypothesis Experiments Learnings Database. So where you document all the critical assumptions you had and all the experiments or research you did, and what were the insights, the learnings from it. So if another colleague starts a similar project, you can just do a text query and look, okay, what were the learnings in the past? Because I mean, that's really, in the end, it's all about it's the saying, learn or earn. So we have to do a lot of learning before we earn, but often a lot of learnings get lost because I mean, everybody wants to talk about successful projects, and all the conference, all the people are talking about their successful projects, but you don't learn a lot of from successful projects. You learn much more from unsuccessful projects, but they are not documented.